Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages, we are proud to present to you the best OP themed channel in the world, the SF Flavor Show, where we have the flavor that you want to savor. And on today's episode, we're effectively going to talk about what we talked about in the previous episode, where we were all grilling me about my SF play against the rest. Personally, I think I won in that round, but it's not about who wins or anything like that. So we're going to start off with the lovely Emmanuel about her thoughts about the previous episode. Take it away.
Yeah, it was too short of episode. I just love to grill you, Sam. And it was very interesting for me to see how you flow with the energy, how you share it. And I'm sure we'll get back to you in some points. So I look forward to that.
Oh, cheers. Thank you. Yeah, it was kind of fun. And before me, we'll go with the lovely Hannah.
Yeah, I thought it was so interesting how you're able to track other people's emotional patterns, even though you have demon intuition. Like seeing how much someone spikes, what makes them spike is a kind of pattern tracking to me. And I think that that's really something that is special about FE, especially the Savior FEs, that you're able to do that. I wasn't aware of that. And I think it's really a gift, like maybe also a curse sometimes, but I think that's a beautiful gift to have.
Oh, nice. Well, apparently I've been doing it my whole life. And now the last one, the lady who likes to call me daddy, Maria.
Oh God, yes. Yeah, just to echo what everyone I can't take it seriously anymore. Yeah, just to echo what everyone else said. I really enjoyed last week's episode. I thought it was really, really great. And I agree with Hannah, like it just sounds like a superpower. Like in my head, I just picture you being like some kind of human polygraph machine. Like you're just tracking the emotional patterns going up and down and just with the sensory as well. And then using that to like manipulate things in sort of an NT way. And I just thought it was a real gift, and it was a real pleasure hearing you speak last week and just getting to know you a little bit more in that sense. So yeah, thank you for those feedback that you gave.
I guess that's a lot of tribe validation for me. So my bucket's full for next week. And I guess some of my views about it was that upon me talking about it with these people, kind of realized that I think if you slow down and look at, as I like to call the mass of your function, you could probably actually write down everything that you do, but it would be like a really, really fat manual, which goes to show for me that when you listen to the people who have it as a demon express it, it's no wonder they can explain it a bit more because they're really trying to figure it out. Whereas the one who has it as a savior and is unconscious, they have to slow down and be aware of it. So that's what I took from it. So now it's tribe validation. So we're going to just do a few shout outs. Myself in general, I see the people on the YouTube channel. And when you do comment, it's really appreciated from us. We have our reasons why we're doing it. Shout out to Nick for giving me a nice comment saying I have consumed for days. You're damn right, son. So that's nice. And thank you to everyone else. So we'll start again with Emmanuel. Any shout outs?
Yeah, well, it will be 2 shout outs to Nick because Nick, you're right. Blasters are coming.
Okay, Hannah, what about you?
Yeah, I want to shout out Jason. Jason, we've talked quite a bit over the last weeks, and thanks for commenting. It's always just this little ping of appreciation really is kind of motivating and lets us know that you guys are interested.
Oh, that's very nice. And what about you, Maria?
Yeah, I actually want to shout out in-house, actually. I just want to shout out to Emmanuel for the great question and all the people behind those questions. I know you said last week that there were a lot of people who inspired those. So thank you to all the people behind the questions. Thank you to Emmanuel, because I thought they were really, really great questions. And I was just like really just happy to be in this little foursome that we had last time. It was really enjoyable. And like I said, it helped us to see a little bit more about like SF play and also sound. So thank you, Emmanuel, and thank you all the people behind that as well.
Yeah, so if you have great questions, people, please send them to me so I can take story of it.
Emmanuel's the gatekeeper of all the great questions, so yeah.
And just to be DE fair, there was one other person called Late Gates who also commented on our YouTube, and she enjoys it because her demon is SF, so she's getting some type of value from it. So on my side, I'm very honored, but I can talk for the rest of us that we're very honored about that. So before we go into the next episode, is there a few questions you guys wanted to pop out, or we'll get straight into it?
Let's go.
All right, sweet. So last episode was about me. It's probably the best episode there, personally.
Hey, wait for the rest of us.
Hey, I'm talking. I have the mic. Yeah. Now we're going to talk about Maria, who is a consume first, feminine sensory, masculine FI. And we, the rest, are just going to bombard her with a few questions and to get her explaining her je ne sais quoi, her vavavoom about it. So again, I'm asking Emmanuel first because I'm going in that OI order because it's easy to stay in my head. You can have the floor with the very first question.
Oh, nice, Maria. So you consume.
Yes.
So you explained it as feeling alive and choosing what is vibing for you. But we already talked about the self-care that you can have for yourself and how you like. And I'm going to talk about clothes. Okay, let's go about clothes. But it's just an example to feel my demon English. At what age do you think you became conscious about you wanted to pick something for you, enjoying, the clothes or the self-care or putting the attention in that area? At what age? And were you in a situation where it was supported or not? How was your environment reacting to that when it bloomed?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Okay. Yes. So in all honesty, I think it came up a little bit later in life in terms of actualizing my vision for how I wanted my style to appear. Like, I think around my 20s, that's when I actually started to kind of like actualize my vision. And I kind of attribute that to like last, like the follow through of being able to bring like alive, like make my vision alive is lacking. So it's just stuff that I used to kind of take note of and notice and be like, okay, this looks like something I would like, that looks like something I would like, but nothing that I actually ever carried out until maybe later in life, until like my early 20s. And I, like I said, I kind of attribute that to like last, but also like energy dom is like, I just love being in my PJs all day long. And if there was one kind of clothing that I could pick to wear for the rest of my life, it would be my pajamas or nothing at all. Because, sometimes I don't wear pajamas to bed. But so in answer to your question, I think a lot of it is kind of like lastisms and also energy dom. I'd rather be wearing pajamas. But in terms of like going outside and stuff like that, because I know like culturally it's more appropriate for us to be able to do that. So I did used to I did and I still do pay attention to what I think would look nice or what I want to look nice on the outside. And if I did have the opportunity to go out, this is how I would want to present myself. That's always just been running in the background. So like if I'm watching a film or if I'm like reading social media, if I'm like reading a magazine or a newspaper or whatever, I'll just be looking at it and think, oh, this looks nice. This could potentially be something that I would want to wear. But whether I actually end up doing that is another story, because I rarely go out because I just like being indoors all the time in my PJs. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, yeah, that was very interesting. So basically you like to chill, but then when you do go and pay attention to things, you start looking at what you kind of like in general, which I'm going to be a little bit selfish, Hannah, and tell you to wait your turn now. I'm going to ask a question in.
Daddy speaking.
Hey, girls, behave. Basically, so when you talked about the whole you're liking what you like with the clothes, I'm like, okay, technically I have this SEFE. So when it comes to me being fashionable, not right now, in general, I'm always looking at what seems to get the best value in general, subconsciously, unconsciously. And then when I pick clothes, I'm like, okay, that would probably look good on me. And then when I do wear them, when I go out to certain places, I get some nice compliments. Whereas my triangulation of clothes is based on, oh, I'm looking at everything that probably has the highest value. So it doesn't mean that I dress not, it doesn't mean I dress the best, but it means that most likely there's a higher probability of me looking nice in clothes. Whereas for you, you're not even thinking about what people like. You're just like, what? I dig this, I dig that, I'm feeling this.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is I end up kind of picking styles that a lot of other people might wear because I still have the SE. I'm still looking at like on the spectrum of what objectively looks good or what objectively, is popular out there or whatever. So like I'm still going to be outwardly shopping for items that already exist out there, which happens to be items that a lot of people are wearing. It's just the difference is then I am then making my final decision of whether or not I'm going to add that one to my box based on, do I actually like this? Does it fit in line with who I want to be? So I think ultimately I do end up having a style that a lot of other people might kind of have. It's just, I've just decided that actually out of the ones that people have, this is the one that fits me the best. This is the one that I like.
Oh, very interesting. Very nice. Okay, so now it's time for our SF queen, Hannah. Oh.
Yes. So Maria, just skip first, and I would be really interested to know how you think that your consume and your play are talking to each other and what that mind space is like for you.
Yeah, this one is a tricky one because like the SE is feminine, so I barely even notice that it's happening. How are they talking to each other? I think it's kind of like a unconscious transition from consume to play, because all it is just I'm just changing the decider, but like the SE is still the same. So I'm still gathering in data, I'm still gathering facts, I'm still gathering all that, but it's just, am I gathering something in because I like it, or am I gathering something in because I think this is what other people is gonna like work the best? So I think the transition is just the transition is just from, is this about me or is this about including everybody else? But other than that, like the gathering stuff is still going to be the same. So I'm still just going to be on crackhead, just taking in stuff all the time. It's just I suppose the switch is just whether or not I'm being selfish and whether or not I'm including everybody else in it. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. So to you, the distance between these two is actually very small because it's very focused on on the more.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Very interesting.
I wonder, Maria, how do you react when you think something is ugly? Is it like visceral reaction of just fighting it, like, oh, no, this is too ugly or something? Is it or how does it work when you think, yeah?
This is actually a common thing, that it's a reoccurring theme actually, because I say this stuff to my brother, like we'll just be talking about something random and then I'll just be like, oh, this is ugly, but it's like a matter of fact. I just say it in a very matter of fact way, and he kind of gets offended because he's like, oh my gosh, you're not supposed to say that. And I'm just like, something either is ugly or it's not. Like I can't, like I'm not being personal about it. It's just not an attractive thing. And like, I don't know, just for me, there is just an objectively attractive and an objectively unattractive thing. And me saying it's unattractive is not me kind of bringing my own like personal bias towards it. It's just, I'm just very much aware that this out of the, I guess, spectrum of attractive or unattractive is just not on the better looking side of things. So I think there's a little bit less emotion attached when I consider something is unattractive, just because I'm just aware that it's nothing personal. It's just not.
So there's not a repulsion of it.
No, it's just it is what it is to me. I'm not like emotionally, viscerally like charged. I'm just, oh, this is just not a good looking thing. This is just not an attractive thing. It is what it is.
Okay.
I think that makes so much sense, because I think could it maybe be because we're all SFST. And I think that we tend to talk about SF as if it were ST. It's like, it's a fact that is good or bad. And it kind of gets very like, and there is very little like spike to that.
I disagree.
Okay.
Ooh.
I understood it right. To what Hannah said, I don't think it's their facts. It's just all based on our subjectivity. So with you, FI ladies, if something's really gonna hit something that you believe or emotionally value, then I think you're strongly gonna get repulsed. I kind of theorize from what I've seen in the outside world that I've got a few people who are FI, and when they're really disgusted by something, I see like that emotional spike, which I think, and I'm going to throw Emmanuel in it, that she would agree if we have the FE, that when you see someone really doesn't like something, you can see them just go into the like, what the hell is that? And logic kind of goes out the window.
Yeah, I don't think that those two contradict each other, but now I would be really interested. Maria, do you think that there is an area of your life where you have more of this visceral reaction to something that's bad?
Yeah, I think if I have an emotional attraction to something, that's going to make me more likely to accept it into my life. I don't mean to be like, I hope this doesn't come out rude, but I did date someone who was unattractive before. And before I developed feelings, he was just an unattractive guy. But when I developed feelings, he was still an unattractive guy. He was somebody that I loved, right? He was somebody that I had feelings for. So it doesn't change, for me anyway, it doesn't change how I see the person. It just changes it just changes the fact that I might let that person become more intimate with me. So if there's no like emotions attached to it, then the intimacy is going to be a little bit less. Okay, we're specifically talking about a romantic relationship here. If we're talking about like platonic one, that's different. But like if we're talking about romantic relationships, if I have feelings for that person, then that's just going to change the level of intimacy that me and that person have. But it doesn't still change the fact that I'm very much aware that this person might not be the most attractive person on that on a scale of 0 to 10. Like, you know, objectively, like the majority of people are going to not see this person as quote unquote attractive. I do appreciate that obviously everybody, you know, beauty's in the eye of the beholder and all of that stuff. But I think if we're talking about like objectively how many people are more likely to kind of consider this person as attractive, we're talking about scientifically speaking, biologically speaking, symmetry of the face and, you know, no like obvious features that are kind of like out there, that kind of stuff, then I would say, yeah, that never changes for me, I don't think.
You're so shallow. So
I am. I'm not even gonna front. Like I am. I'm not even gonna.
Oh, I don't think so, because in that case, Maria, you have a very differentiated view of you're able to kind of distinguish. This is like you kind of can see the spectrum, and all. I think that's really, you know, what's happening there. You're looking at the spectrum while also looking at yourself in a way, and you have those two levels going on, and you can distinguish them and be calm about that. Maybe those two don't align at all times.
Yeah, and they don't have to be. Like for me, it doesn't have to be like, because I'm just aware that there are obviously different that there are different things that you can be attracted to, not just like somebody's looks, right? Like somebody's personality could be something that's attractive, or, you know, somebody's behavior, somebody's attitude could be quote unquote attractive. So I can distinguish between like physical attraction and like emotional or like attraction to personality easily, and it doesn't really bother me. Like just because somebody's unattractive doesn't mean that they're not going to make up for that in a different area. And depending on what you want as a person, I think you can kind of have a combination of all of those things, and it will still kind of make up this one beautiful person. Just because there are just, you know, ugly people have love too, you know. It's you know, it's not the end of the world. Like you can still have a happy, fruitful life and be, you know.
I got a question for you. There's hope out there for everyone. So my question's in relation to I guess Emmanuel or anyone with SIFE. So like in my theory, people with SIFE could be your greatest friction, feeling restricted, or your greatest ally because they're doing something completely that you don't do. You share some connection with me, you share some connection with Hannah, but Emmanuel is the complete opposite. So what I'm basically asking is, what do you see as like the negatives that you, not that they're negatives, but you animalistically feel from people of that type? And also, what are the turning that negative into a good? What are also the good sides that you see from it?
Yeah, well, I don't want this to be kind of, at the risk of sounding like my type, it feels a little bit like I'm being restricted.
Okay.
Especially when we're talking about just like the sensory stuff, because obviously I want to open it up. I want to be as open as possible and just have as many possibilities as I can. But obviously with the OI-ness of the SI, it just feels like I'm being restricted from just doing what I want. But then conversely, like with the FI versus FE, it feels a little bit like you were talking about last week about it being a little bit fast for you. Sometimes I feel like I'm not quick enough to I'm not quick to catch on the vibe in the way that the FE is. So it feels like what's the word, like in that sense it just feels like I'm a little bit too slow, and I'm having to catch up, and that's kind of draining a little bit sometimes. So on the one hand, yeah, it feels like I'm being restricted. On the other hand, it feels like I'm being drained. And I suppose the positive side of it is, I mean, at the moment, like SI is definitely my favorite like function of all the 8, just because I think it's kind of touching on everything that I would want in terms of like sensory plus like a little bit of OI. So I have deep respect for like SI as a function, just because I feel like I've gotten a lot of progress in terms of like my growth just by making sure that I'm a little bit more routine and a little bit more kind of organized in the sensory. So with that regard, I do respect SI as a function. So I think for that reason, I think definitely has a lot of uses. But at the same time with FE, like we talked about in the last podcast with you, just I think being able to track emotional patterns is very, very useful, especially me who's like, FI, like thinking that I'm the ultimate authority on like vibes and morals, but yet I'm completely missing when other people are like not happy or not pleasant. Like, for example, when we jumped on the Discord earlier, and then Emmanuel was the first person to be like, you're so sad. And I was like, I thought that, but I didn't think to bring it up. I didn't think to like address it, and I didn't think to raise it as a thing or to bring light to that. And I think based on kind of the kind of person that I want to be, but also what I do for a living, I think that function could be very, very useful. So those would be the positives that I would take from that.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I wasn't sad, guys. It was just my bitch face. So there you go. Thanks for sharing that. I guess I'm in info mode now. I'm going to give you a choice. So there's either talk about the same type of question template in relation to me or Hannah. Pick your poison or your blessing.
Oh my God, I can't choose.
5, 4, 2, 1.
Hannah.
Good.
Pressure. Wait, what was the question? Oh my God, that was horrible. That was death.
The same question that I said in relation to me, no, to you and Emmanuel. Now with Hannah, you both share the FI, but no, yeah, you both share the FI, but you don't share the S side. So what's the pros, what's the cons? Analytically, how do you feel? What do you think? All that stuff.
Yeah, I think animalistically, I think I'm a little less jarred by the SF sleep than I am with the SF blast. Just because, like you said, we share that FI, so we have something in common, like halfway there's a halfway point that me and Hannah share. And we've had like really great discussions in the past about like love and just relationships, and that's great. And it's always just something that's just very close to my heart. So I really, really appreciate that we can relate to each other on that level. And Hannah's also masculine FI, so we have that in common as well. So it's just nice to be able to relate and have a language and speak to each other in a way that we don't even need to kind of like explain. I feel like I don't need to explain that part of myself to Hannah because Hannah already knows. So that's always just nice, being able to go into a conversation and know that you already share a language and you don't need to like translate it. So that's nice. With the SI, I do have obviously the cons of that being that it feels a little restrictive. It feels like I am having, like you mentioned, Sam, feels like I'm having to slow down on a lot of things, and it feels like I'm restricting myself from opening up. But on the plus side, everything that I said before about about the fact that I really appreciate the routine, and I think Hannah has talked about like her SF sleep being good for like self-care and self-preservation. That's something that I could work on a little bit better, because I don't take care of myself in the way that you would expect an SF consume to. But I think Hannah has that down to a T. In terms of like, and I just give the example of when we first met at the first Europe meetup, when we were in the middle of a party, an actual gathering with people engaging, and she was like, I'm going to take a nap. And I was like, damn, like I wish I had that level of self-restriction to be like, fuck you guys, I'm going to take a nap in the middle of this party.
But you have to see that in the context of the situation. I needed that nap really badly.
That's the difference between me and you that I really value. If you definitely need something, I feel like you have that boundary down to a T. You are able to impose those self boundaries on yourself to be able to take care of yourself, which I lack. I lack, like I definitely needed a break. I definitely needed to go away and take some time to myself and recover. But I was like, oh, I can't, because there's a room full of people. Not that they were going to miss me or anything, but I just felt obligated to stay and interact to death, you know, even if it killed me. But you don't have that. So I really appreciate that.
Okay, thank you for sharing that again. And then the last one, me, the one you like to call daddy again, wink, wink. I'm going to stop saying that now.
I think you're going to make it stick.
Yeah, but yeah, so what's your same type of question with the SEFE, the pros, the cons, the ups, the downs, your whole experience?
Yeah. So with me and you, again, with the same with Hannah, we share a similar language in the SE, is that our conversations are different from the conversations that I have with me and Hannah, where we're kind of like talking a lot of like love and romantic relationships and all that like good vibe stuff. But me and you's conversation, it is a lot of those like animalistic vibes and just, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So we share a common language in that. So I really appreciate that I get to speak with somebody who isn't going to take offense to stuff like that. And I'm able to have that kind of free-flowing conversations about things in a very objective way. So I really do appreciate that. But similar with what I said about kind of Emmanuel, the downside of that is that you're very, very quick with the FE. And I feel like I'm very, very slow with stuff like that. So the things that you get very comfortable in an emotional environment very quickly, whereas me, it takes me a really long time. And I think the worst thing about that is it makes me very aware of the fact that I am a bitch because you're so like kind to everyone and just so open, whereas because I'm taking such a long time to kind of like open up in the vibes realm, it just makes me aware of myself and that, oh my god, I'm being a bitch. Maybe I need to be a little bit more like, maybe a little bit more kind of like carefree and free flowing about this whole vibe stuff and not just be stuck in my own kind of like vibe head. So I suppose the cons of that, like being around you, is that I'm just very much aware of how not easygoing I am in terms of the vibes, whereas you're kind of like easygoing about that. But obviously, as I mentioned before, in terms of the pros is that, you know, you're able to respect everybody's emotional vibe and you're able to connect with people more easily. So yeah, that's sort of the positives of that one.
Wow. Well, we kind of learned a lot about you from there. So before we wrap up, to the other two, any more questions that piqued your mind, or we all good?
Yeah. I have one. Emmanuel, do you have one too?
I'm thinking about something. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, then I'm gonna go first. So there is this common notion that if you have SF consume, the first things that we think about are the things that we've talked about, fashion or self-care. I don't know, self-care. Is there something, or how do you feel about these things? Are there other things that maybe stereotypically you would think are more related to some kind of an NE consume that you are also interested in? And how do you see that difference between these types of consume?
Could you repeat the question again? Sorry.
So, bad OI.
Sorry.
So, no, I have the bad OI. So, stereotypically, there are a lot of, stereotypes of what SE consumers like.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find yourself consuming things that are more stereotypically any consume? How do you see the difference that are not, fashion or stuff like that?
Not to be the type that I am, but like, do you have any examples of what would be stereotypically any stuff?
Philosophy, science, how to build something, if that makes sense, how to build how to build a business, politics.
Yeah, I do have interests. I mean, obviously, like my first love is psychology. Like I come from a psychology background, so that's my first love. And obviously, a lot of psychology is built on philosophy. So I do kind of read a lot about like philosophy type stuff. So I would say in that sense, yes. I'm kind of in a phase at the moment where I am trying to do a lot more, like separate myself from sort of government work and just veer into my own, like setting up my own business and like private therapy and stuff like that. So I suppose in that sense, I am kind of gathering at the moment a lot of information about how to set up a business and stuff like that. So if you're talking about those kind of specific examples, I would say, yeah, like I'm not just sitting at home reading fashion magazines, I'm not just sitting at home like reading, I don't know, what's a popular SF thing? I don't know, whatever. Insert SF thing here. Yeah, I'm not just sitting at home reading. I do like most of my interests are like psychology related type stuff. So I would say that's the kind of stuff that I would spend most of my time consuming. Even when I am like watching, like I do consume a lot of like TV programs and like movies and stuff. But even then, I'm always trying to like figure out the psychology behind all of that. I think I don't know. I just feel like I'm just either I'm that interested in psychology or I'm just naturally psychologically minded, but like I do consume just a lot of psychology stuff, so most of my time is taken up doing that. I think the usual typical SF consumes stuff like fashion and stuff that doesn't really interest me as much. It feels more like a means to an end, or something that kind of you need to be able to do in order to be like a functioning member of society. You need to be able to present yourself in a certain type of way. So it's more like something that I feel like is just necessary, just something you do naturally, rather than anything that's of particular interest to me. I would say that I do the bare minimum consume of like fashion stuff needed for me to feel happy with myself. And then after that, that's just about, like, I don't even wear makeup, like stuff like that. So I do enough for me to feel happy with myself, but just not to the extent where it's just like overtaking my life. I think the rest of the stuff that I am consumed by is like psychology type stuff and like that kind of stuff. But I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes.
Okay, that was brilliant. Okay, guys, I guess this is the end of the show. So I want to say to everyone who was watching, thanks for watching the show. Hope to see you on the next episode, which is going to be between Hannah and Emmanuel in who we choose to grill next, the sleep or the blast. So anything else, ladies, you want to say to the fans that are watching? I guess that's a no. So see you guys. Peace out, guys.